All right, this week Ole Miss is on the road. They open SEC play early, real early in the season. They got to take on the Kentucky Wildcats, a team that actually got them in Oxford last year.
Yeah, Ruben. In fact, that was Kentucky's only SEC win last season in Oxford, like you said. So, that stung a little bit. Kentucky didn't exactly shine in their debut against Toledo with a 24-16 win. And believe it or not, Toledo actually outgained Kentucky by about 20 yards.
That's not good, right?
That's what I'm saying.
Not if you're Kentucky. Now, we say all that we say so that we all say this could be the Rebels' year, right? But for more on what it's going to take for Ole Miss to get it done.
Get her done.
Get her done, yeah. Those answers, we got to bring in the man.
The man, the myth, the legend. You can't talk Ole Miss without this man in the conversation. He is the host of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, which you can catch right here on the 24 Plus app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Mr. Stephen Willis, let's clap it up.
Back in the building, Mr. Stephen Willis.
Thank you. Oh, my goodness.
For both of us.
You know what I'm saying? I got to do the Jackson Dart clap. Remember the whole thing with Coach Gruden about all that clapping? I'm like Jackson Dart. I'm just clapping.
All right, Stephen, let's get started. First impressions after what we all knew was going to be a blowout win.
Well, it was a blowout win. That was the first SEC team in the history of the SEC to have 3 straight season open wins over 60 points in the game. And it's one of those things, if that was so easy to do, more than one team would have done it. So give them their flowers on that as well. Now, on that being said, it was a struggle win a little bit. They had a slow start in the beginning, and then they kind of got going. And scoring 63 points, having almost 700 yards of offense in a struggle win, what does it look like whenever they put it all together? Do they put it all together this weekend against Kentucky? That is kind of my takeaway from that. If that is middling Ole Miss on offense, what does good Ole Miss look like? That's my takeaway there.
Now, I was down there in Vaught Hemingway, Stephen, and the first takeaway that I had looked at is Austin Simmons. Now, I know last week we talked about he's going to be in Jackson Dart's shadow, at least in the beginning. And, of course, we're playing the comparison games. I mean, if you look at the numbers, Simmons did better than Jackson Dart's debut. But what stood out to me was those 2 interceptions. So what did you kind of see from Austin Simmons in week 1 that you liked?
I think he got fooled on one pass. The second interception was on the quarterback. The first one was on the offensive line. He was just hit when he threw the ball and just ended up in the wrong team's jersey. Austin Simmons, it's a pretty ball whenever it comes out of his hand. I mean, it just looks different than other quarterbacks, and he is a young quarterback. That was his first start. Against Kentucky will be his first road start. But he is good enough to overcome a lot of deficiencies with his arm strength, his accuracy, and everything that he has and in his disposal. I like Austin Simmons. I think his debut was about what you wanted as an Ole Miss fan or an Ole Miss coach. You wanted him to have things to set his confidence ablaze, but also has some stuff to work on as well. And that interception that he had, that second interception, he definitely needs to eliminate that, because Mark Stoops this weekend for Kentucky, he's known for occasionally putting quarterbacks on skates a little bit. And if you're not careful, he'll pick off 2 or 3 passes, and with the few number of possessions on offense that Kentucky gives up, I mean, a turnover means a little bit more when you play against a Kentucky team. You can ask Ole Miss a year ago. You were head and shoulders above where that Kentucky team is. But you played with your food, you let them stay in the game, then all of a sudden on the last drive, there's a 4th and 12 that's converted for a 50-yard gain and a fumble into the end zone that allowed Kentucky to win that game. Believe it or not, that is Kentucky's comfort state. And Austin Simmons has to take care of the ball this weekend. Lane Kiffin can help him out a lot by kind of slowly easing him in as well, in my opinion.
Isn't that, though, what you kind of need? You need him to struggle a little early in a game to see how he's going to respond. Because if it's all sunshine and roses, Then when you turn around and do play Kentucky and you have a turnover, how's he going to respond then? So you kind of need him to struggle a little bit.
Yeah, Lane Kiffin said in his Monday press conference the first quarter in that Georgia State game was more adversity than the team last year got in all 4 games to start the season. So you did get to see him bounce back. And, you know, my wife, who is a super football person, obviously, but she noticed in that game just flat out is like he bounced back really well. There's been quarterbacks that 2 interceptions in 1 quarter, that would have been a confidence killer. And if somebody that only partially watches a sporting event notices that, everybody else should notice that as well. And like I said, I think that was a perfect first game for Ole Miss and specifically Austin Simmons.
Well, Stephen, I got to kind of do a little quick aside here, you know, on looking at that Ole Miss Georgia State game, like you talked about, when you looked at those 2 interceptions, me, myself, going into the game last week on this program, I thought that Georgia State would cover against Ole Miss. So looking at that first quarter, I was thinking pretty good about myself. I was like, okay, Georgia State going to cover 34.5, the spread. And then next thing you know, Georgia State everything just turned around. So, I mean, for the fact, like you said, that Ole Miss can turn it on just like that, from what I noticed out there, is every time Ole Miss scored, Lane Kiffin was just like, okay, you know, he was just walking around with his hands folded, just like, okay, we're supposed to do that. Is that just the type of guy that he is? It seems like he's never happy.
Well, he is happy whenever he gets a gotcha play. But against Georgia State, there's not really going to be gotcha plays. On the offensive and defensive side of the ball, they played very vanilla games. They kept things hidden for Kentucky. For instance, you'll see against Kentucky, Suntarine Perkins move around. There was no moving around against Georgia State. It was very base defense, do what you need to do. And because of that, I think this game in Kentucky has a chance to look a little bit different. For instance, the Ole Miss offense looks faster than it did last year. There's no Trey Harris on this team. There's no Jordan Watkins on this team. But Trey Wallace or Deshaun Stribling, I think it just looks faster. It looks twitchier on offense. Maybe it's the Austin Simmons effect, but I'm curious to see what that looks like when an SEC defense is on the other side of the field, because Ole Miss looked really fast, both offensively and defensively, against Georgia State.
All right, Stephen, I know we got to let you go and wrap this segment up here in a second, but real quick, I do want to get your take on how you feel. What's your outlook for Kentucky? I think it's 11-11 when the game is in Lexington, so it's not necessarily just a gimme game, right? So what should fans be on the lookout for when we're talking about Kentucky? I think their quarterback's like 75 years old or something. He's been playing for like 75 years or something.
Yeah. First of all, you can catch it at 2:30 p.m. Central Time right here on ABC 24. Yep. Shameless plug for you guys.
Thank you.
But when it comes to Ole Miss in this game, Mark Stoops likes a rock fight, and he has had Lane Kiffin's number over the last couple of years. In 2022, it was a 3-point game that Ole Miss won, and last year it was a 3-point game that Ole Miss lost. I think that Lane Kiffin needs to get past the rock fight, and to do that, he needs to throw it short to throw it long. He needs to run the ball to throw it short. He needs to play small ball a little bit at the beginning of the game to open stuff up later on. I think Ole Miss is going to win this game. I think Ole Miss is going to cover. I'm calling 24-10 in this game. It could be more. I know that Lane Kiffin and the Ole Miss staff spent a little extra time on the Kentucky defense. Last year when they did that was against Arkansas and against Georgia, and we all saw how that worked out. We will see if Lane Kiffin can do the same thing in Lexington. I think that Ole Miss is going to win this game relatively easy. And
No, looks like we lost Stephen.
We lost him. I was
go.
just about to say, I appreciate the little Bluff City lines he gave there, saying that Ole Miss is going to cover. We always appreciate the time from Stephen, and we will be catching it up with him next week.